Under the golden Caribbean light, the Dominican Republic feels alive. Music spilling from balconies, laughter echoing through narrow streets, and ocean air thick with warmth. On the surface, it's paradise. But stay long enough, and you notice something else. A quiet hunger beneath the rhythm. Women here have learned to survive storms, raise families, and chase dreams alone. They're proud, magnetic, and untamed by routine. Yet what draws them to older Western men isn't wealth, it's peace. In a world where youth shouts, maturity listens. Where passion burns fast, calm stays. These women crave the stillness that comes after chaos, the kind only experience can bring. And for many Western men, the Dominican Republic feels like more than escape. It feels like being seen again, in a place where sincerity still matters. The paradox. To outsiders, the Dominican Republic is a postcard, sun-kissed beaches, bachata drifting through humid air, and people who seem to dance through life. The world imagines it as carefree and endlessly romantic, where every smile hides no burden, and every sunset means peace. Tourists come chasing that illusion, the rhythm, the warmth, the promise of effortless connection. But for those who stay long enough to see beyond the resorts, paradise begins to feel complicated. Life here is vibrant, yes, but it is also demanding. The same women who charm visitors with laughter are often the pillars of their families, raising children, caring for elders, and working 2 jobs while balancing a society that praises femininity but offers little support. Beneath the music lies exhaustion, and beneath the smiles, a quiet desire for something steady, something real. This is where the paradox begins. In a culture built on rhythm and passion, many have forgotten what stillness feels like. The Dominican Republic celebrates beauty and youth publicly, yet privately, many women are drawn to something deeper: maturity, calm, reliability. The world calls them flirtatious. They call themselves survivors. They have learned that good looks fade, but emotional stability feeds the soul. Economically, the island has grown fast. Tourism, remittances, and urban expansion have lifted many out of poverty. Yet that progress has a cost. Technology connects everyone, but deepens comparison. Social media paints a glossy image of love that reality rarely matches. The young chase validation online, while the older quietly remember when affection meant more than likes or messages. For Dominican women, the influx of Western visitors brought more than income, it brought contrast. They saw men who listened instead of shouted, who planned instead of promised. They saw men who didn't compete to prove masculinity, but carried it quietly, like a steady heartbeat. In a country where many relationships begin with intensity and end in silence, that quiet strength felt revolutionary. To Western men, the Dominican Republic offers a mirror, showing what they've lost in their own societies. Back home, affection is negotiated, independence mistaken for disinterest, and sincerity feels outdated. Here, they find women who still believe in touch, in loyalty, in partnership that feels like refuge rather than performance. What began as attraction becomes recognition, a meeting point between 2 emotional exiles. But it's not without tension. Locals whisper that some women are too quick to trust foreigners, while others warn Western men of illusions wrapped in charm. Yet beneath those suspicions lies something truer. Both sides are trying to fill a void modern life has widened. The Western man, tired of being unseen in his own world, finds warmth again. The Dominican woman, tired of carrying everything alone, finds peace in being cared for. This isn't the fantasy the travel ads sell, it's the quiet reality hidden behind them. The island is beautiful, but beauty here is survival. It seduces you with color and rhythm, only to remind you that love is work, not luck. And while outsiders see a paradise of passion, those who live here know the truth. The real attraction isn't the sun or the sea. It's the rare feeling that, for once, someone's presence doesn't demand, doesn't rush, doesn't fade. It simply stays, understanding the culture. The Dominican Republic runs on rhythm, not just in music, but in how people live. Every morning, streets come alive with the sound of vendors, engines, and gossip spilling from corner shops. Life is communal, physical, present. Yet, under that closeness, there's a quiet erosion. The old values of loyalty, patience, and partnership, once held sacred, are being replaced by speed. Traditionally, Dominican culture revolved around family. Grandmothers were the moral core, and relationships were built on endurance, not convenience. Couples stayed together even through hardship. partly because survival depended on unity. Faith was a constant anchor. Sundays meant church, shared meals, and neighborhood gatherings that reminded people they belonged to something bigger than themselves. But today, the younger generation measures connection differently. They scroll instead of visit. They post love instead of practicing it. Technology gave the island global access, but drained local intimacy. Instagram and TikTok turned romance into performance, creating pressure to appear perfect, even when homes are strained and hearts are lonely. A young woman might still cook rice and beans for her family, but she'll pause to capture it for likes, reshaping sincerity into spectacle. The Dominican identity, once rooted in warmth and resilience, now balances between authenticity and image. Economics intensified the shift. Tourism employs nearly 15% of the population, and with it came constant exposure to Western ideals, freedom, independence, and material comfort. These aren't bad values, but they clash with the island's emotional traditions. The pursuit of money and self-betterment quietly replaced emotional interdependence. Men work abroad, women juggle home and income, and families stretch thin across continents. Love, once a daily act, now feels like a luxury few can afford. Gender expectations add another layer. Dominican society praises female strength, yet burdens it. Women are expected to be caregivers, earners, and emotional anchors, all at once. Men, meanwhile, often struggle to meet rising expectations in an unstable economy. Some withdraw into pride or detachment, others leave altogether. The result is emotional scarcity, disguised as independence. Both genders crave connection, but neither feels safe enough to ask for it. Even religion, once a shelter, has shifted tone. Churches still fill on Sundays, but the sermons have softened to accommodate modern fatigue, preaching positivity rather than patience, self-love instead of sacrifice. The old belief that relationships were sacred has evolved into an unspoken acceptance that everyone is replaceable. These undercurrents shaped a society where warmth still exists, but it's cautious, guarded. The paradox is that Dominicans remain some of the most affectionate people on earth, yet many experience deep emotional isolation. They know how to dance, but not always how to stay. In this tension, older Western men enter as something almost old-fashioned, steady, attentive, unhurried. Their calm energy stands out in a culture spinning faster each year. They listen without competition, love without theatrics, and remind Dominican women of what used to define their grandparents' love stories: presence. Not the grand gestures, but the quiet reliability that feels increasingly rare. The Dominican Republic may be modernizing rapidly, but beneath the progress lies nostalgia. Not for poverty, but for connection. The more efficient life becomes, the more people realize what's missing can't be bought, streamed, or captured. It has to be felt. And that truth explains why the island's most alluring export is no longer just beauty or rhythm. It's the yearning for something real, the women. To understand Dominican women is to understand contradiction. They are the heartbeat of the island, proud, radiant, and fiercely independent. Yet beneath their strength lies exhaustion. These women grew up watching their mothers do everything: raise children, manage homes, endure heartbreak, and still show up smiling. That inheritance made them resilient, but it also made them tired of being unprotected. In Santo Domingo, you'll see them everywhere, leading offices, running markets, studying late into the night. They are ambitious, but their success often comes at the cost of tenderness. A culture that once prized devotion now rewards hustle. Many women have learned to equate vulnerability with weakness. They love deeply, but carefully. And when they finally meet a man who moves slowly, speaks gently, and means what he says, it feels almost foreign. They've spent years building walls made of self-reliance. Many raise children without partners, relying on family or community instead of commitment. The local dating scene, especially among younger men, is often impulsive, passionate, but inconsistent. Infidelity is common, not always out of malice, but from cultural normalization. Dominican women know this pattern well. Affection that begins intensely but fades without warning. That's why, when an older Western man arrives, patient, calm, reliable, he doesn't seem dull. He seems safe. These women are not seeking saviors. They're seeking peace. The kind that comes from being with someone who listens more than he talks, who values consistency over competition. Western men often underestimate how emotionally intelligent Dominican women are. They see through charm instantly. What attracts them isn't money, but maturity, a sense of grounding that contrasts the chaos of daily survival. Social media has intensified their longing for stability. Every platform shows polished relationships, luxury vacations, romantic captions, while in reality, most are struggling silently. Dominican women scroll through these images not with envy, but fatigue. They want something simpler, a shared meal, honest conversation, and a man who shows up tomorrow the same way he did today. Many of them grew up watching their fathers leave for work abroad, to Miami, Madrid, or New York, sending money but not presents. That absence carved a generation of women who vowed to never depend on anyone again. But independence without companionship feels hollow. Beneath the polished nails and bright laughter, there's a subtle ache, a craving for stillness, for the comfort of a shared silence that feels safe instead of lonely. That's why older Western men fit naturally into this emotional landscape. They bring what the culture has lost: steadiness. They don't rush. They listen without interruption. For women who've been taught to fight for every ounce of attention, that quiet attentiveness feels revolutionary. It's not about the fantasy of foreign love. It's about relief from emotional noise. Dominican women embody the island's spirit, dazzling but weathered. They know how to smile through storms and rebuild after every disappointment. Yet, what they desire most isn't luxury or escape, it's balance. Someone who matches their strength without challenging it, who softens their edges without diminishing them. They may dance to fast music, but their hearts move slowly. And when they find a man who understands that rhythm, who meets their fire with patience, their beauty with respect, it no longer feels like a vacation fling. It feels like coming home. The man. For Dominican men, love has long been a stage where masculinity must perform. From a young age, they are taught that charm equals worth and attention equals power. They grow up surrounded by music that glorifies conquest, not commitment, and in communities where infidelity is almost expected, not condemned. To be desirable is to be admired, and to be admired is to be seen as successful. But somewhere in that performance, something precious is lost: intimacy. Many Dominican men are affectionate, expressive, even poetic. Yet, beneath that energy lies deep insecurity. They live in a culture that celebrates passion but seldom rewards consistency. In the early years, relationships burn bright. But when hardship arrives, many men retreat into work, pride, or silence. Emotional communication is seen as weakness. To open up is to risk losing control. And so, they love loudly, but feel quietly, never saying what they truly need. The younger generation is even more conflicted. Social media magnifies comparisons. Dominican men scroll through images of influencers, wealthy travelers, and Western lifestyles that seem unreachable. Some channel frustration into ambition, others into escape. They migrate for better pay, seeking dignity abroad but often losing belonging in the process. Those who stay behind sometimes feel displaced in their own culture, unwanted by women who crave stability, overshadowed by foreigners who embody the patience they never learned to show. For Western men, the Dominican Republic feels like both discovery and mirror. Many arrive after years of emotional exhaustion, divorced, lonely, or simply unseen, in a world that prizes efficiency over empathy. Back home, they were told to adapt, to suppress the need for connection, to stay useful. Here, for the first time in years, someone looks at them not as outdated, but as dependable. Their calm, their maturity, their stillness, all the traits that felt invisible in the West suddenly have value. But their fascination isn't just romantic, it's reflective. When Western men see Dominican women's strength, they see the same independence that reshaped their own societies. Women forced to harden to survive. When they listen to local men talk about pride and fear, they recognize their own confusion. The slow erosion of purpose in a modern world that no longer defines love as responsibility. The Dominican Republic becomes less of a paradise and more of a prophecy, a glimpse into how every culture, once intimacy fades, begins to feel hollow beneath its color. Some Western men handle this realization with gratitude, others with guilt. They know they benefit from the very imbalance that isolates local men. Yet, they also understand that their connection with Dominican women isn't exploitation, it's mutual refuge. Both sides are running from loneliness born of progress. The man who lost tenderness in a digital age meets the woman who lost rest in a survival economy. Together, they rediscover the forgotten rhythm of slowness, of touch without transaction, affection without agenda. Still, not every story ends with harmony. Misunderstandings arise, differences in culture, expectations, or unspoken pain. Yet even those imperfect connections reveal something profound. In every society, men are quietly grieving the same thing: the fading of meaning in love. Dominican men disguise it in bravado, Western men in politeness, but both ache for the same truth, that being a man once meant being steady, not detached. And in this Caribbean mirror, they find that what's missing isn't love itself, it's the courage to stay when everything else tells you to move on. When a culture forgets how to stay still, love becomes motion, constant, restless, and shallow. The Dominican Republic reflects what happens when survival outpaces connection. Relationships become negotiations, intimacy becomes a resource, and the soul of togetherness quietly drains from daily life. People still touch, still flirt, still marry, but fewer truly belong to one another. This loss doesn't happen all at once. It begins subtly, when messages replace visits, when convenience replaces effort, when pride replaces apology. Technology promised connection, but instead, it created distance that feels comfortable. A man can say he loves someone without ever showing up. A woman can appear strong without ever feeling safe. The digital world has given everyone a voice, but stolen the silence where love used to grow. Economically, progress has lifted millions, yet it has also scattered families. Nearly a quarter of Dominican households rely on remittances from abroad, meaning love is maintained through money, not presence. Children grow up hearing affection through phone calls, and spouses learn to accept absence as normal. In that adaptation lies tragedy, the normalization of emotional distance. As intimacy weakens, loneliness spreads. Studies show rising rates of depression across the Caribbean, especially among urban youth. They have opportunity but no grounding. They see love as a luxury, not a foundation. And in that emptiness, temporary pleasures, nightlife, social validation, brief connections become replacements for companionship. The country that once built its identity on closeness is learning to live without it. This is where philosophy and reality meet. Progress gave freedom, but freedom without intimacy breeds emptiness. Women became stronger, men became prouder, and yet both feel lonelier than ever. The Western man who once chased career success now flies across oceans in search of tenderness. The Dominican woman who learned to never depend on anyone now longs for someone who simply stays. These are not failures of character, they're consequences of modern life. Love, in its simplest form, has become a rebellion. To slow down, to listen, to care without motive. These acts now feel radical. The island that once danced to the rhythm of togetherness now dances to survive. Yet beneath all this motion, a quiet realization is spreading. Intimacy is not outdated, it's endangered. If progress continues without pause, the Dominican Republic may lose what once made it magnetic, not its beaches or beauty, but its heart. When every interaction is filtered through self-protection, when every relationship becomes transactional, something vital disappears, the courage to need one another. But maybe that's why so many Western men are drawn here, not just to find love, but to remember it, to feel human again in a place that still believes, however faintly, that love should be lived, not optimized. And for the women who meet them, the connection becomes proof that gentleness still exists. Two worlds, both damaged by progress, finding temporary balance in one another. It's not perfect, it's fragile. But perhaps that fragility is what makes it beautiful, because in a world that rewards speed, love remains the last thing worth slowing down for. At sunset, the streets of Santo Domingo glow gold. Music seeps through the walls, children laugh in the distance, and waves brush the shore like memory. From afar, it looks like paradise, the kind you'd never want to leave. But up close, it feels like a place still learning how to love in a world that forgot how. The women move with strength, but their eyes carry stories of endurance. The men walk with pride, but inside, there's quiet fatigue. They're both survivors of the same paradox, a culture rich in warmth, yet starved of rest. The Western man who arrives here doesn't just see beauty, he feels recognition. This island isn't just escape, it's reflection, a reminder of what his own society traded away: stillness, loyalty, presence. For a moment, everything aligns. Two people from opposite worlds sit under the same sky, speaking different languages, but sharing one truth: that love was never meant to be efficient. It was meant to be lived slowly, like the rhythm of a song that refuses to end. But the world keeps moving faster. Flights leave, phones buzz, and even paradise feels temporary. What remains is the echo, that fleeting memory of being understood, of being seen. And maybe that's the real story of the Dominican Republic. Not the beaches or the laughter, but the quiet spaces in between, where people are still brave enough to feel. Because no matter where we live, no matter how far progress takes us, the truth stays the same. The human heart doesn't evolve. It only waits for someone patient enough to listen.